You wake up and something is missing. You don't know what, but it's like your skin doesn't fit anymore. You used to care about your goals, your appearance, your social life, but now it all feels hollow. You stare at your phone, watching the screen light up with messages you don't want to answer, people you no longer connect with, responsibilities you can't bring yourself to fake interest in. And the scariest part is, you don't feel sad, you feel nothing. Numb, quiet, disconnected. Like life is moving around you, but you're not part of it anymore. At first, you think it's depression, burnout. Maybe you're just tired, maybe you're lazy. You start blaming yourself. But deep down, there's a whisper, a strange sense that maybe this isn't just about fatigue or failure. Maybe it's something else. Carl Jung would say it is. He would say you're not falling apart, you're shedding. Because what's dying inside you isn't your soul, it's your mask. The one you've been wearing for years. The version of yourself you built to be accepted, to be liked, to survive. The achiever, the helper, the people pleaser, the strong one, the funny one. The one who kept going even when everything inside was begging to stop. But now, that version of you is collapsing, quietly, painfully, and no one around you notices because they only see the role. They never met the real you. You're not broken. You're becoming. But the process feels like death. Your passions dissolve. The music you loved sounds like noise. The dreams you fought for suddenly seem meaningless. You start questioning everything. Why do I even care about these goals? Who am I trying to impress? Why do I keep chasing things that don't fulfill me? And when the answers don't come, you panic. Because if you're not who you've always been, then who are you? This is what Jung called the beginning of individuation. The painful process of separating who you truly are from who you were taught to be. It's not gentle, it's not graceful, it's a spiritual molting, and it often starts with exhaustion. That soul-level fatigue is not weakness, it's a system shutdown. It's your psyche refusing to fuel a life that doesn't align with your essence. Think about it. You've been running on survival mode for years. Saying yes when you meant no, smiling when you were screaming inside, building a life around expectations that were never yours to begin with. And now, your soul is rebelling. It's cutting the power, and you feel it as emptiness. But emptiness isn't the absence of life. It's the space where new life begins. The truth is, you're not uninterested in life. You're uninterested in the version of life that's been handed to you. The routines, the rules, the roles, the image you created to be palatable, the career that looked good on paper but devours you inside, the relationships that demand your loyalty but don't nourish your spirit. That's what your soul is rejecting. You start to lose motivation, not because you're lazy, but because the rewards no longer feed your truth. External validation tastes like ash. Accomplishments feel hollow. Even rest doesn't restore you. Because what needs rest isn't your body, it's your identity. And the identity you've been performing can't be healed. It has to die. Jung believed that the psyche will go to war with itself if you refuse to live authentically. You'll experience conflict, confusion, and collapse. Not because you're failing, but because you're evolving. The numbness is part of the metamorphosis. The silence is sacred. You're being stripped down to what's real, but it doesn't feel like growth. It feels like grief. You mourn the old you, even if that version was built on pain, because it was familiar, it was known, and now you're stepping into the unknown, unarmed. No more scripts, no more performances, just you, raw and unraveling. And that's terrifying, but it's also holy, because only when everything false is burned away can the true self begin to emerge. And that self isn't loud, it doesn't demand attention, it doesn't need applause. It sits quietly beneath the noise, waiting for you to notice, waiting for you to remember who you were before the world told you who to be. This is why nothing excites you anymore, because you're not meant to go back to who you were. You're meant to go forward, but you can't see the path yet. You're in the liminal space, the hallway between two lives, one that's dying and one that hasn't been born yet. And this space is where most people give up. They rush to fill the void, to go back to what's comfortable, to pretend they still care. But if you can resist that urge, if you can sit in the discomfort, you will emerge transformed. Because underneath the apathy, there is a quiet fire, a whisper that says, "Don't move yet. Let it burn. Let the wrong friendships burn. Let the wrong goals burn. Let the false self burn. The more you let go, the lighter you become. And one day, without even noticing, you'll start to feel again. But this time, it won't be a performance. It will be real, and you'll look back and realize the death of your desire wasn't the end. It was the beginning of your awakening. And if that's where you are right now, stay with it. Don't numb it. Don't run from it. Don't diagnose it as failure. Because Carl Jung would tell you, this is how the soul reclaims itself. You're not fading. You're finally being revealed. Losing your desires doesn't mean you're dead inside. It means your soul is finally done chasing illusions. You used to want so much, to be seen, to be loved, to matter. You built entire versions of yourself around those wants. But now, those wants don't move you anymore. They don't ignite anything. You look at the life you once dreamed of, and it feels distant, artificial, even childish. And you wonder if you're broken. You're not. You're waking up. If this message found you right in the middle of your silent transformation, tell me in the comments what part spoke to you the most. And if you want to walk this journey together, don't forget to subscribe. We're just getting started. Carl Jung believed that the true self doesn't emerge in comfort. It's revealed in collapse. In those quiet seasons when everything feels meaningless and stripped away. That's when the ego loses its grip, because the ego thrives on wanting. It feeds on desires, fantasies, applause, and identity. And when your wants start to die, the ego panics. It tells you that something's wrong, that you're failing, that you're losing everything. But you're not losing, you're shedding. Desire can be a prison, not because it's wrong to want things, but because we're taught to want what doesn't belong to us. We inherit desires from a world that profits off our disconnection. Want to be attractive, want to be popular, want to be successful, want to be more than you are. And we buy into it. We think, if I just reach that next goal, I'll finally feel enough. But when you start to see through that, when your nervous system can no longer sustain the lie, it all begins to dissolve. You begin to grieve things you never realized you were faking. The job that once gave you status now feels like a cage. The friendships built on shared trauma or convenience begin to fade. You stop craving recognition. You stop explaining yourself. And you start sitting in silence, not because you're defeated, but because the noise can't reach you anymore. The role is losing its power. And that's terrifying, because we confuse passion with purpose. We think if we don't have desire, we don't have direction. But there is a sacred stillness in this in-between. Jung called it the dark night of the soul. It's not a clinical depression. It's not an existential crisis. It's spiritual transformation. It's the destruction of everything false by force. Because the soul will not allow the lie to continue forever. You might find yourself isolating, not out of fear, but necessity, because the noise of others, their expectations, their labels, their opinions, it all becomes unbearable. Small talk feels poisonous. Social media feels like a masquerade. The places you once found meaning now feel like haunted replicas of who you used to be. And people start to notice. You've changed, they say. You don't care anymore. But they're wrong. You care more than ever, just about different things, real things, quiet things, soul things. And this shift doesn't come with fireworks. It comes with fatigue, detachment, and most painfully, loss. You lose people, not because you don't love them, but because your frequency is changing. You no longer vibrate at the same level of chaos, neediness, or performance, and people will either follow your silence into growth or disappear back into noise. You'll feel guilty, lonely, but also free, because for the first time, you're not chasing, you're not proving, you're just being. And that, in this world, is an act of rebellion. Carl Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." But that privilege comes at a cost. You will lose the version of you that played by the rules. You will lose the comfort of fitting in. You will lose the certainty of being liked. But in return, you gain something unshakable. You gain presence, peace, integrity, and that's when the real work begins. Because once you're stripped of desire, you begin to notice the deeper signals, the faint call of your true path. It doesn't scream, it whispers. It comes in dreams, in discomfort, in random moments of inspiration. And it doesn't tell you what to do. It tells you what to stop doing, stop pretending, stop shrinking, stop betraying yourself for love, stop chasing a life that's not yours. And as you follow that voice, your energy begins to return, not all at once, not in ways others can see, but in subtle shifts, a breath that feels deeper, a conversation that feels real, a moment of solitude that feels like home. You're not going back to who you were. You're becoming someone new, someone ancient, someone buried beneath the noise of survival, someone who doesn't need permission to exist. And you'll notice your desires don't come back the same. They're quieter, wiser. They're rooted in purpose, not performance. You want less, but what you want is real. You no longer want to be envied. You want to be understood. You no longer want to be busy. You want to be present. You no longer want to prove yourself. You want to be yourself. And this shift terrifies the world because you become unpredictable, uncontrollable. You no longer respond to pressure. You don't panic when plans fall apart. You don't beg to be chosen. You don't explain your silence. You just exist, fully, honestly, unapologetically. And that kind of existence threatens everything fake. So yes, you will lose desires, you will feel empty. But that emptiness is a portal, a sacred vacuum where the real you is reborn. And if you have the courage to walk through it, to feel every loss, to grieve every mask, to endure every question, you will emerge with a clarity that can't be taught. Because the soul doesn't scream, it strips. And when it's done stripping everything false, what's left is holy. There comes a moment when the silence becomes louder than the world around you. Not the silence of peace, but the silence of mutation. You can feel something shifting underneath your skin, yet nothing makes sense on the surface. You no longer know what you want. You no longer fit where you used to belong. The music you once loved feels irritating. The conversations you used to enjoy now feel fake. You scroll through your phone and everything feels lifeless. And then it hits you. Nothing outside of you is changing, you are. Carl Jung described this internal shift as a confrontation with the self, a stage where the outer identity starts to decay and the real essence begins to emerge. But it doesn't happen like a spiritual awakening in the movies. There are no fireworks, no instant clarity, just a growing discomfort, a vague grief. You're mourning a version of yourself that used to feel real. A self that was constructed to survive, to be liked, to achieve, to impress. But now survival isn't enough. You want truth. You want something that doesn't evaporate the moment people leave or applause fades. And that desire, that hunger, is the signal that you're stepping into a new dimension of being. But don't expect this transition to be graceful. It's raw, messy, disorienting. You'll wake up feeling numb. You'll walk through the world like a ghost. You'll feel emotionally hungover after small talk. You'll question every decision, every relationship, every plan you once had. Not because you've lost your way, but because you're starting to see that you were never truly on your own path to begin with. You were playing someone else's script, following someone else's definition of success, living up to roles that made others comfortable but made you miserable. And now, for the first time, your system is rejecting it. Your nervous system starts to shut down in spaces where you have to perform. Your body starts reacting to things that used to feel normal: parties, gossip, social pressure. You get sick more often, more anxious, or sometimes just deeply, deeply tired. And that tiredness is not laziness. It's your soul unplugging from what no longer feeds it. You're detoxing from your false identity. That's why you feel like you're losing everything. Because in many ways, you are. You're losing the scaffolding, the armor, the layers of shoulds and musts, and that's just how life is. You're shedding the costumes, and underneath all of that is someone you don't fully recognize yet. It's terrifying to meet yourself in this raw state, because this self doesn't have titles, doesn't have validation, doesn't have a map. This self only has questions. And one of the most painful ones is, who am I now? You'll search for answers in books, in videos like this, in long walks, in the ceiling at 3 a.m. But Carl Jung warned us, the self doesn't reveal itself in answers. It reveals itself in presence, in being willing to sit with the confusion, the loneliness, the ambiguity, without rushing to fix it, without numbing it, without running back to the false safety of the old life. This is the death before the rebirth, and that death is brutal, because it doesn't just take your goals, it takes your motivations. It doesn't just strip your routines, it strips your sense of control. You stop recognizing your own reflection. You stop identifying with your name, your career, your ambitions. It all feels like a play you no longer want to act in. You don't want the spotlight. You want the backstage. You want to watch the whole show burn and wait for what rises from the ashes. And this is when the loneliness becomes suffocating. Because no one warns you that awakening isolates you. You try to explain it to others, but they look at you like you're lost, depressed, lazy. They don't understand that you're not giving up. You're shedding. They don't understand that this isn't about failure. It's about freedom. They tell you to just snap out of it, to get back to normal. But what they don't realize is that you don't want to go back. You can't. The bridge is gone. The illusion has cracked. And now you can only move forward into the unknown. And this unknown will test you. It will test your faith in yourself, your ability to sit in the void without running, your willingness to rebuild your life from truth, not from fear. You'll want to quit. You'll want to distract yourself. You'll want to go back to a life that at least had predictable pain, but something inside you, something ancient, won't let you. That's the self calling, not with fireworks, but with whispers, with gut feelings, with tears that come from nowhere, with the sudden knowing that you're not supposed to be where you are, not anymore. And here's the paradox. The moment you stop running from the emptiness, it stops feeling empty. You start noticing beauty in strange places. You start hearing your own voice again, not the voice trained to be polite, but the raw, direct, honest voice you forgot existed. You start feeling little sparks of clarity, like tiny lights on a long, dark road. And most importantly, you start remembering things you never consciously knew. Deep instincts, intuitions, messages from your dreams, desires that have nothing to do with fame or success, but everything to do with meaning. You stop asking, "What should I do?" and start asking, "What feels like truth?" Carl Jung said, "Your vision will become clear only when you look into your heart. Who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakens." And that's where you are now. In the messy, glorious, soul-wrenching process of awakening, not the Instagram version, the real one, the one that burns, that isolates, that breaks you apart so the real you can finally be seen. You are not falling apart, you are unfolding. And what's coming next is not another role to play. It's a life aligned with who you really are. But to get there, You must pass through the fire. You must lose what never belonged to you. You must sit in the silence and trust that your real voice will find you. And when it does, you will never forget the sound of it. There's a stage in your transformation where nothing external can validate what's happening inside of you. You're not becoming more successful. You're not becoming more liked. You're not becoming more productive. In fact, on the surface, it looks like you're disappearing. People stop reaching out. Invitations fade. Friends go silent. Not out of malice, but because the energy you once offered them no longer exists. You're not the available one anymore. You're not the emotional caretaker. You're not the people pleaser. You're not the version of you that made them feel comfortable while you were dying inside. You're becoming foreign to them and to yourself, and that's when fear creeps in. Not the fear of failure, the fear of being no one. Because when the old masks fall, what's left? You've lost your ambitions, your routines, your need to be understood. But the new self hasn't arrived yet. It's like you're standing between two mirrors, watching your reflection fade on both sides. No past to cling to, no future to hope for, just a heavy stillness. A space where you're supposed to wait. But for what? Carl Jung called this the liminal phase. A sacred in-between space where all former identities dissolve. And he warned, this is not a place most people can handle. It's the womb of the soul, and it doesn't care about your plans. It only cares about what's real. This is why so many go back to toxic relationships, back to jobs that numb them, back to addictions that make the silence more bearable. Not because they're weak, but because this phase, this waiting, feels like death. And in many ways it is. It's the death of certainty, the death of validation, the death of narratives that once made life feel manageable. You're no longer the hero of your story. You're not even the narrator. You're just there, in the dark, hoping the next chapter will write itself. And here's what no one tells you. The deeper you go into your own emptiness, the closer you get to something sacred. Because underneath the layers of confusion, grief, and detachment, there's a still, small presence. Something ancient, something quiet, something that feels like home. But it speaks a different language. It doesn't speak in goals or logic or performance. It speaks in sensations, in symbols, in synchronicities, in dreams that make no sense until they do. It speaks through sudden tears, through a stranger's eyes, through a line in a book that grabs your soul and won't let go. It's your deeper self, the one that's been watching quietly from the shadows. And now, in the absence of distractions, it finally has space to speak. But here's the paradox. You won't hear it if you're still begging for noise. You won't feel it if you're still trying to fix your life instead of face it. You have to be still. You have to be willing to descend. Jung said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." And that privilege requires sacrifice. It means losing what made you feel safe. It means being misunderstood. It means looking at your life and realizing that most of it was built on fear, on performance, on survival. It means accepting that no one is coming to save you, because the only one who can is already inside of you, waiting for you to remember. This is where the integration begins. You start reclaiming the parts of yourself you abandoned to fit in, the weirdness, the rage, the softness, the hunger, the intuition you ignored, the truth you silenced. You start realizing that the real you isn't polished, isn't always kind, isn't always strong, but is always honest. And that honesty starts to reshape your entire life. You're not alone in this process. Share your thoughts or your story in the comments. Your voice might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today, and if this helped you breathe a little deeper, hit that subscribe button and stay with us. You stop talking when you don't want to. You stop smiling when you don't feel like it. You stop explaining yourself to people who don't want to understand. You stop chasing what drains you. And in that space, something wild happens. People start leaving. The invitations stop. The compliments fade. The world no longer claps for you because you're no longer performing for it. This is the test. Can you keep going without applause? Can you sit with your own silence and not mistake it for failure? Can you honor your becoming even when no one else sees it? Because that's when the breakthrough comes. Not when you've fixed everything, but when you stop needing to. You realize that you were never meant to be everything to everyone. You were never meant to carry others while bleeding yourself dry. You were never meant to live small so others wouldn't feel insecure. You were meant to be, wildly, unapologetically and fully. But to reach that, the false self has to starve. And starving doesn't feel spiritual. It feels like hell. You'll question everything. You'll miss the old chaos. You'll romanticize your old pain. You'll remember the high of being needed, even if it was killing you. You'll crave anything that feels familiar just to escape the emptiness. But you must stay. Stay through the grief, through the silence, through the awkwardness of being unseen. Because something deeper is happening. Your soul is pruning, cutting away everything that cannot follow you into your next chapter. Everything that was built on ego, fear, and survival. Everything that kept you fragmented, and what's left is pure, uncompromising, and terrifyingly real. And that's the version of you the world truly needs. Not the version who fits in, the version who feels, who knows, who sees, who remembers what it means to be whole. Carl Jung said that individuation is the process of becoming indivisible, of no longer splitting yourself into fragments to survive. And that's exactly what's happening now. You're becoming whole. But before that wholeness can stabilize, something even deeper must occur. Something that most people never face, but is at the heart of true inner transformation. You start to feel like you're disappearing because, in many ways, you are. Not physically, not entirely emotionally. But something inside you is dying, and it's not a mistake, it's not depression, it's not weakness, it's not failure. It's a funeral, a necessary one, the kind that doesn't come with flowers or goodbyes, the kind that happens in the silence of your own soul when no one else is watching. And it's brutal, because the self that is dying isn't your enemy. It's the one that protected you, the one that kept you safe when you were a child and didn't know how to say no. The one that helped you survive when no one saw you, understood you, or validated your truth. The one that learned to be what everyone else needed because that was the only way to feel loved. That self, the false self, is collapsing, and it hurts like hell to watch it go. Carl Jung said, "We don't become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." This is what he meant. It's not a euphoric moment of transcendence. It's a slow dismantling of everything you thought you were. It's crying for no reason. It's feeling disconnected from the people you used to love. It's losing interest in the goals that once lit you up. It's mourning your own identity while pretending to function in a world that demands performance. It's standing in front of a mirror and not recognizing the eyes looking back. You've been stripped of your illusions, and what's left is raw, tender, and terrifyingly real. You realize that much of your life was built as a defense, that your ambition wasn't pure, it was a cry for validation, that your kindness wasn't love, it was fear of abandonment, that your strength wasn't resilience, it was suppression. And when all of that falls away, what remains? Silence. Not the peaceful kind, the kind that echoes, the kind that shows you what you've been running from. The kind that reminds you how alone you really feel, not because you're unloved, but because you've never truly let yourself be known. And that silence is sacred, because in that silence, something begins to grow, slowly, quietly, like a whisper beneath the noise. It's not an answer. It's not a plan. It's not a promise that everything will be okay. It's just a presence, an awareness, a feeling that maybe, just maybe, you were never broken. You were just buried under expectations. under guilt, under roles that never fit, under masks that grew so heavy you forgot they weren't your face. And now, for the first time, you're learning how to breathe without them. You speak, and your voice feels foreign, but free. You move, and your body feels strange, but sovereign. You sit in silence, and it's not empty anymore. It's full of something ancient, something real, something that was always there, waiting for you to stop pretending. This is what it means to come home to yourself. It's not fireworks, it's not applause, it's not some grand spiritual climax. It's the quiet realization that you don't need to chase anything anymore. That being fully present, fully human, fully honest, that's the miracle. And the world around you begins to shift. People don't understand you anymore, but you don't need them to. Opportunities come that you didn't strive for, because your energy is no longer desperate. You no longer beg for love, because you finally love yourself enough to walk away from what hurts. You no longer fear being alone, because solitude is no longer a punishment. It's your sanctuary. You become magnetic, not because you're performing, but because truth is attractive, because depth is rare, because people can feel when someone has died and come back wiser. They may not have the words for it, but they sense it. Your presence tells a story of pain transmuted into power, of loss turned into clarity, of darkness that became the cradle of your light. You are no longer a version of yourself curated for acceptance. You are the storm and the calm that follows it. You are the wound and the healer. You are the broken path and the feet that kept walking anyway. Carl Jung called this individuation the integration of all you are. Light, shadow, fear, fire, soul. It's not a destination. It's a becoming, a lifelong unfolding, a process of deeper and deeper honesty with yourself. And now that you've crossed the threshold, nothing can ever be the same. You will lose more people. You will be misunderstood even more. You will be called selfish, cold, distant, arrogant. You will be accused of changing, and you will smile because they're right. You have changed. What did this awaken in you? I read every comment, and I'd love to know how this message landed for you. And if you felt seen, heard, or understood, subscribe to the channel. More truths are coming, and they're made for you. You no longer live for their comfort. You no longer shrink to be liked. You no longer hide your rage, your softness, your boundaries, your truth. You are finally you, untamed, unedited, unapologetic, and that will cost you everything that was false. But what you gain is everything that's real. If you're in this phase right now, if you're losing friends, losing interests, losing your old sense of purpose, don't run, don't numb it, don't confuse it with failure. It's the death before the rebirth. It's your soul calling you back. It's the shedding that has to happen before your wings can unfold. So stay with the silence, stay with the confusion, stay with the ache of being in between. Because on the other side of this unraveling is the version of you who doesn't need to be liked to feel worthy, who doesn't need to be needed to feel whole, who doesn't need to be busy to feel alive. On the other side is the real you, and they've been waiting for you to let go. Thank you for staying with this journey until the end. If you felt seen, shaken, or strengthened by what you just heard, take a moment to reflect. Let it sit in your chest. Let it echo. And when you're ready, step forward, not as who you were, but as who you were always meant to be. Carl Jung showed us the path. Now it's yours to walk. And if this video spoke to your soul, share your thoughts in the comments. Not for me, but for the version of you that's finally ready to be heard. We're not done yet. In the next video, we'll dive even deeper into the part of the soul that sabotages your happiness just when you're about to receive it. You'll want to see that. Until then, stay awake, stay honest, and most of all, stay you.